Hey, tonight we're exploring something your body isn't meant to feel, not even for a second. But let's imagine it anyway. What if the Earth stopped spinning just for 5 seconds? You're standing on familiar ground, maybe in your room, barefoot on wood or carpet, or out in a vast field with nothing around but wind and silence. But tonight, the air feels stiller than it should. The stars aren't twinkling, not really. They're holding their breath. Somewhere deep in your chest, your bones remember motion you've never noticed. The earth spins beneath your feet at over 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, and you've been moving with it every second of your life. You never felt it. You were cradled by it. So when that motion disappears, just for 5 seconds, everything you know starts to unravel. You probably won't survive this world unchanged. But that's the point. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you enjoy quiet stories like this. And if you're still awake, post your local time and where you're listening from. It's always comforting to know someone else is out there floating beside you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. There's no warning, no siren or alarm. One moment, the world is as it always is, humming with silent spin. And the next, it hesitates. You don't hear the stop. You don't even feel it, not in the usual way. There's no jolt, no earthquake, just a sudden, eerie lightness. As if gravity has lost its conviction for a moment. As if you were inside a car moving at highway speed, and someone slammed the brakes, but the car is the planet itself, and you are everything not strapped down. This is inertia. That quiet law of physics you learned once, maybe back in school. The one that says an object in motion stays in motion, including the oceans, the air, and your body. In this pause, your mind reaches for metaphors. You imagine your breath hanging still in the air. You think of a music box mid-spin, silenced by an invisible hand. You feel your inner ear drift sideways, confused, as if your soul lost its balance. There's a real-world detail here, easy to miss. If the Earth stopped spinning, even briefly, the surface would still try to move. The crust where you stand would slow with the core, but the atmosphere above you, it wouldn't. At the equator, air would keep surging eastward at over 1,000 miles per hour. Just imagine that for a moment. The sky becoming a sideways flood. But this isn't the equator. Not tonight. This version of you stands somewhere quieter, maybe closer to the poles, where the rotational speed is gentler, where 5 seconds might not tear you from the ground, but just distort things. Slightly. The horizon looks familiar, but wrong. The clouds don't drift, they tremble. Trees seem braced, waiting. Time slips its rhythm. You feel every bone in your body trying to reconcile something that no animal has ever experienced before. And it's not just you. All around the planet, things are responding. Somewhere in a jungle, a leaf quivers even without wind. Somewhere in the ocean, a deep-sea current surges sideways, confused. Somewhere in space, satellites drift microscopically off path. Their algorithms unsure whether to panic or wait it out. It's eerie, in a way that doesn't feel like fear, more like recognition. A part of your brain, too old for language, remembers what it means when the world behaves out of character, when the ground beneath your feet stops playing by the rules. There's a strange scientific fact here. Hidden in the quiet, without Earth's spin, our shape would change. The centrifugal force from rotation slightly bulges the planet outward at the equator. Without it, Earth would gradually become more spherical. But 5 seconds isn't enough for that. Not yet. Still, your senses detect something ancient shifting. The ground is the same. The sky is the same. But between them, in that invisible space where life hums and hearts beat and clouds breathe, there's an absence, a missing motion. And while your body may be still, your thoughts are racing. You wonder what happens next. That's the hard part, because nobody knows. Scientists can model the physics. They can estimate the wind speeds, the crustal tension, the momentum transfer. But the human part, the lived moment of 5 global seconds without spin, is uncharted. And unchartable. Would you fall forward? Would the oceans rise? Would machines groan or stay silent? Would birds, mid-flight, feel the tug? You walk slowly through this imagined landscape, your footsteps light, uncertain. The world hasn't ended. Not yet. It has only paused, like a breath held too long. And in that fragile stillness, you find a kind of awe, a reverent quiet, not fear, not exactly, just wonder. The kind that makes your skin cool slightly. The kind that lives behind the eyes of people who've seen eclipses or watched lightning strike a mountain. And then, just as silently as it began, the world starts to remember how to move again. But that's not this moment. Not yet. For now you're still inside the stillness, and that 5 seconds isn't quite over. You notice it in the air first, or rather, the absence of what should be there. The breeze you once took for granted. The slight resistance when you lift your hand or turn your head has vanished. The atmosphere hangs heavy but quiet, as if someone's turned off the ceiling fan in a room you didn't know was spinning. It's not that the air is still, it's that it shouldn't be still. Your skin feels it before your mind understands. Then comes the movement, not from the ground, but from the sky itself. The Earth's surface, crust and rock has paused, but the vast ocean of air above it hasn't. It continues its journey as it always has, pulled by inertia, unbound by brakes or awareness. And suddenly, the sky isn't overhead anymore. It's coming sideways. You can't see the wind, not directly, but you see its fingerprints. A wall of motion crossing the landscape, invisible yet present. Trees bend in one synchronized breath. Dust lifts from the ground in long, unbroken streams. The grass lies down flat like it's afraid of something. And somewhere far above you, Clouds are ripped apart like silk under tension. This isn't just wind. This is air moving at hundreds of miles per hour. The residual motion of a planet that used to spin. At the equator, scientists estimate the ground travels at about 1,670 kilometers per hour due to rotation. Remove that spin, and the air keeps going eastward at the same blistering speed. It's not survivable, not in the real world. Buildings would crumble, forests would flatten, oceans would leap from their beds. But this is a dream, a soft dream, a version of events not meant to harm, only to imagine. So in this imagining, you're far from the equator. You're on a quiet edge of the world, maybe in a northern forest, or a wide desert, or a snow-covered plain. The wind comes, yes, it howls, it moves with purpose, but it doesn't destroy. Instead, it passes over you like a ghost that doesn't know it's dead. Your clothes ripple, but the trees behind you sway. But your feet stay anchored and above you. The sky begins to break into long ribbons, as if someone has run fingers through wet paint. There's a historical note here, quietly strange. In the early 19th century, a scientist named George Hadley theorized how Earth's spin causes wind patterns to curve, a phenomenon later refined and called the Coriolis effect. Without that spin, all the winds we know, trade winds, jet streams, cyclones, would behave differently. They might not exist at all. You wonder, in this moment, if birds would forget how to navigate. You wonder if the air itself feels confused. And you wonder, most of all, what happens when this stops, because it has to stop. Even the atmosphere can't rush forever. Its motion was borrowed, not owned. 5 seconds is long enough to displace, to bend, but not to erase the rules entirely. Still, the world doesn't wait. You hear it before you feel it. A low groaning in the distance, not mechanical, not animal. Something in the earth responding. Trees shifting roots, hills resettling, maybe even tectonic plates adjusting infinitesimally to a tension they were never designed to endure. A soft vibration passes under your feet like a whisper from beneath the crust. Not enough to knock you down, just enough to remind you that the stillness above is mirrored by unease below. And through it all, you walk slowly. Nothing chases you, nothing falls, but the sky keeps flowing. A great long breath released sideways, and you're inside it. One eerie detail clings to your senses. Shadows no longer match their sources. They lean where they shouldn't. The sun itself, still in the sky, seems stretched, pulled slightly eastward by the moving air. Not actually displaced, of course, but your eyes can't make sense of it, and your mind stops trying. Reality doesn't seem broken. It just seems malleable. You look behind you, half expecting to see your own footprints erased by wind, but the ground remains quiet. It's the sky that's restless. There's a philosophical debate that flickers in your thoughts. Something a scientist once wrote, that if we could somehow watch the universe without time, we would see motion as an illusion. that everything that moves only in relation to something else. So what happens when one part of the world keeps moving and the rest doesn't? Are you still moving too? Or are you simply being moved, like a leaf in a stream? It's hard to tell. And maybe it doesn't matter. You keep walking. The wind softens slightly, losing momentum. It's not abrupt, more like a large animal growing tired, a gentle slowing, until the trees begin to straighten and the dust settles back to the earth. You reach out your hand and catch the air between your fingers. It feels normal again, invisible, light. But the silence left behind is different. You look up. The clouds have stopped racing. They now seem to float, hesitant, unsure whether to trust this new calm, and the earth is still not. Spinning dot, there are a few seconds left, maybe 2, maybe 1. Time isn't behaving anymore, so it's hard to know. But in those final moments of motionlessness, you sense it. A strange, quiet logic beneath the chaos. A moment when the world doesn't push you forward and you don't push back. A moment when gravity waits, when the sky slows its breath, when everything balances on a single point in time, and you're there, watching it just for now. You stand still, but the world continues unfolding around you, not in noise, but in pressure. Beneath your feet, the ground feels solid, trustworthy, but not far from you. Perhaps only miles away, something much larger is in motion, not the sky this time, but the water. You feel it first as a hum in the air, like a massive engine powering up somewhere below the horizon. Except there's no engine. There's only the ocean, forgetting where it belongs. When Earth spins, the oceans spin to dragged along by gravity and friction. They bulge outward at the equator, pulled by centrifugal force. That bulge is subtle, invisible from shorelines, but it's real about 8 kilometers higher at the equator than at the poles. You've lived your whole life inside that gentle bulge. Now, in this suspended world, it starts to shift. The water has inertia. It doesn't want to stop. And so, like the air, it keeps moving even when the ground beneath it has gone still. Not as fast, not as loud, but with far more weight. In your mind's eye, you drift above the surface. You watch coastlines tremble, harbors swell. You see waves that don't break. They rise, slow and massive, pushing forward with the momentum of a world that forgot how to spin. You think of tsunami footage you've seen, water rushing inland, unstoppable and sudden. But this isn't that. This is slower, stranger. A motion that doesn't crash, but leans. A force like a mountain bending forward. On the distant horizon, the sea seems to arch. Not a wave, but a wall that curves impossibly, pulled by memory. Rather than gravity, you wonder if boats out there, tiny and forgotten, have already lost their balance. You wonder if sea creatures felt it first. The whales, the squids, the deep dwellers who always sense what the surface hasn't noticed yet. And above it all, the sky remains unsettled. The wind, though softened, still pushes the highest clouds, bores sideways. And now, for the first time, You feel it brushing your skin with moisture, not rain, not fog, just air that has traveled too fast, over too much water, gathering coolness as it goes. A quietly fascinating fact drifts through your mind like the wind itself. In Earth's early days, our spin was faster. A day was only 6 hours long. Over billions of years, the moon's gravity has slowed our rotation just a little. Tides, pulled back and forth, acted like brakes on the spinning Earth. A cosmic tug-of-war, still happening now. So perhaps this 5-second stop is a preview, or a memory. Somewhere nearby, you hear water, not crashing, more like breathing. A lake, maybe, or a flooded plain. Something shallow, waiting. The wind pulls a thin sheet of water across the ground, and the light reflects strangely in it. You see stars there, daytime stars, flickering on the surface. Your shoes, or bare feet, brush the edge. The water is colder than it should be. You kneel beside it. Not because you need to, but because everything about this moment feels like reverence. You touch the surface. Ripples spread and then drift off-center, pulled not outward but eastward. Even the smallest movement wants to echo the planet's lost momentum. And then, something eerie. You look down again, and the ripples you made are still there. But they've begun to spin, not as a circle, but as a stretched spiral, slowly warping into a shape that doesn't quite make sense. It reminds you of the Coriolis effect again, how toilets flush differently in different hemispheres. A fun fact, often misquoted, but based in real physics. The spin of the Earth gently influences how fluids move. Without spin, that influence disappears. But what takes its place? You can't help but wonder, in this motionless world, do eddies form? Do whirlpools die? Researchers still wonder whether sudden planetary motion, or its loss, could tear the magnetosphere, or deform the inner core. Most agree it's theoretical, but there are gaps in the data. Things we only understand from the inside, and now, here you are. Inside, you rise slowly. The wind has died down, the water calms, as if realizing it has nowhere else to go, and the silence returns, a new silence. Not empty, but deep, as if the sky, the sea, and the soil are all listening. You take a step forward. The ground beneath you is damp, soft, grass flattened by invisible pressure. The air smells changed, more mineral, more raw, like the scent that follows a landslide or the bottom of a dry riverbed. You pause. There's something just out of sight. A structure, maybe, or a hill, or a line of trees. It's hard to tell in this light. Everything feels closer and farther, away at once. But what draws you most isn't what's ahead, it's what's missing behind. You turn, and for the first time, you notice there's no trail behind you, no footprints, no sign you were ever walking. It's as if the ground has erased your path, or perhaps it never needed to record it. You're not sure which thought feels stranger, that the world forgot you, or that it never noticed at all. The ocean's slow now, like giants settling into sleep. Their motion lingers, but it loses urgency. The great bulge at the equator begins to slacken, not enough to see, but enough to feel. The Earth's shape is remembering stillness, and you're watching it happen. There's a phrase in your mind, soft and ancient, as if spoken by the planet itself. Everything that moves must one day rest. And maybe that's what this is. Not an end, not a disaster, just a breath, a cosmic exhale, and you're inside it. You feel it first in your legs, a barely there lightness, like you've stepped onto soft moss after a long hike. Your muscles aren't straining the same way. Your knees feel looser. There's something different in the way your feet meet the ground. Not quite floating, not at all, but also not quite rooted. It's not enough to lift you, but it's enough to unsettle something primal, that quiet, unconscious trust you've always had in the weight of your body. In the firmness of the earth begins to flicker, and then you realize what's happening. It's gravity, but not gravity itself. That hasn't changed. Not really. What you're feeling is the absence of what used to resist it. When Earth spins, it creates a centrifugal effect, not true anti-gravity, but a slight outward push, strongest at the equator. That push lessens your weight, just a little. Enough that a person weighs about 0.5% less at the equator than at the poles. But now, without that spin, that outward push vanishes, and the pull of gravity feels complete. For the first time in your life, you feel all of yourself pressing downward. It's subtle, like a forgotten ache returning. And yet, strangely, there's a moment when you feel lighter, too. As if something else deeper, older, is loosening its grip. Maybe it's your sense of balance. Maybe it's the inner ear, confused by a world without rotation. Or maybe it's something more abstract, your place in a system that has stopped behaving as expected. You begin walking again, just to test it. Each step feels more deliberate, but also more thoughtful. You are suddenly aware of your mass, the pull in your heels, the swing of your arms, the center of gravity shifting as you move. The act of walking becomes a kind of quiet physics lesson, dot above you. The sky remains in motion's aftermath, still smeared from the wind's earlier chaos. Clouds form thin lattice, like veins on the inside of a leaf. They drift lazily now, unsure whether they should still be hurrying. And in that slow sky, something changes. The birds are gone. You hadn't noticed their absence until now. No calls, no fluttering wings, no distant silhouettes crossing the horizons, just empty air, as if the instinct to fly had been temporarily turned off. A strange and eerie thought drifts in. What if gravity isn't constant? What if this has all been a balancing act, and the spin, the invisible world beneath your feet, has always been part of the secret? There are theories, of course. Quiet papers published in obscure journals. Discussions about how a sudden planetary stop might compress the crust in unpredictable ways. That it might trigger stress across fault lines. That the equator, relieved of outward force, might begin to sag, ever so slightly. In this version of events, no fault lines rupture, no buildings fall, but somewhere Maybe in the deep Pacific or beneath the Sahara, two tectonic plates adjust their handshake. Not a shove, just a lean, and you feel it. A pulse through the ground, not an earthquake, not even a tremor, just a sensation, like a memory of motion. Something buried deep in the planet's bones, reminding itself, I'm still here. You pause. By a rock, a large one, maybe glacial, maybe older. It seems unchanged, untouched by the sky's panic or the water's drift. But when you place your hand on it, it feels warmer than it should. You close your eyes and you listen. You expect silence, but instead you hear a kind of breathing, not from the rock, not exactly, from below, from within the crust. A slow expansion and contraction, almost imperceptible. Like the planet is adjusting a collar, realigning a vertebra. One fascinating fact emerges from the quiet. Earth's mantle moves, not quickly, but constantly. Convection currents, carrying heat and minerals in cycles that take millions of years. The crust floats on this movement. The spin of the Earth affects it subtly. Without spin, the convection patterns might shift, might become irregular, might even eventually stop. You imagine what a still Earth would feel like inside. Would it grow colder or hotter, trapped without circulation, with the inner heat press upward, looking for escape? You walk on. The land becomes slightly steeper, not a hill exactly, more like a slow incline that wasn't there before. You wonder if the bulge at the equator is beginning to slump, redistributing its mass. 5 seconds isn't long, but when the crust begins to shift, it doesn't need long, just a signal. Somewhere, perhaps thousands of miles away, a mountain range breathes in the tiniest increase in pressure. Rocks shift, valleys tighten, and you, far from it all, feel the whisper of a beginning. There's a quiet moment now, a lull. The air has calmed. The ground, though still strange, holds you steadily. You pause beneath a tree, or what remains of one. It has twisted slightly, its branches angling toward the east, as if tugged mid-growth. You look up, and the sun seems paused at an unnatural angle. The shadows sharp but slightly misaligned. You close your eyes again. The weight returns, full and gentle. And then you feel your heartbeat, slow, consistent, but it's sinking to something different now. Not to your breath, not to your thoughts, but to the weight, to gravity. As if your body, in the absence of spin, is learning to measure time by something deeper. And perhaps that's what gravity always was. Not just a force pulling you down, but a rhythm, a clock older than minutes, older than the moon, a slow, silent song playing underneath everything. Tonight, the tempo has changed, and so have you. You tilt your head slowly, like a child watching something they've seen 1,000 times. But not quite like this. The sun is there, still golden, still bright, but its position is slightly off. Not wrong, just misplaced. The way a picture frame hangs crooked when the walls themselves have shifted. Your body doesn't trust it, not fully. Shadows stretch in strange directions now. They no longer seem tied to their objects. A branch above you casts a line of shade that bends around a rock. The silhouette of your own arm falls behind you, then twitches sideways, as if unsure of its destination. Without Earth's spin, the illusion of the sun's motion is gone. Days and nights are born from rotation. Without it, the sun would remain fixed in the sky, hovering wherever it last found you. A permanent dusk, or a forever morning, depending on where you happened to be when the world stopped. And somehow, you are in the between. The twilight. The sun hovers low, but not quite setting. Its angle suggests late afternoon. Yet the air feels cooler, more like evening has already crept in while you weren't looking. A liminal place, caught in the pause between time zones. Between chapters, light flattens everything. The warmth you expect from sunlight doesn't arrive. Instead, the world is bathed in a soft amber glow, strangely pale, like sunlight filtered through smoke or memory. You squint, not because the light is harsh, but because it isn't. It feels imagined. There's an eerie fact from solar science that you think of now. It takes about 8 minutes and 20 seconds for light from the sun to reach Earth. The light that touches your skin right now was emitted before the Earth ever stopped spinning. That sunlight is still from the old world memory of motion. You sit down on a stone slowly. The air around you is still, not just windless, but paused. Somehow, dust hangs mid-air, longer than it should. Leaves drift slowly and then stop altogether. The world is acting like a photograph that hasn't quite finished developing. And above you, the sun remains fixed. UNMOVING. You wonder what it would mean to live like this. To never see the sun rise or set again. To have one face of the planet eternally bathed in daylight, the other in frozen night, half a planet scorched, half in shadow, and only a narrow band of twilight in between. That's where you are now, the dusk line, the border of day and night, and in this thin margin, time stretches. You remember something strange. A philosopher once suggested that time might not exist without change, that clocks are not time itself, but just the rhythm of things moving. So what happens now, when the world has stopped moving? Does time stop with it, or does it quietly continue, unnoticed? You look again at the sun. Its light doesn't flicker, but something behind it seems different. The sky around it is not the bright blue of day, nor the ink of night. It's a bruised, liminal hue, violet gray, almost metallic, like oil on water, like a dream caught in glass. You squint harder now. There's something wrong with the light. It doesn't behave like it should. You raise your hand and watch the shadow form, but the edges are too sharp. Light, without the diffusion caused by particles in motion, becomes surgical, precise. Your shadow looks like a cutout, a cardboard copy of you, motionless and crisp. There's another scientific curiosity buried in this moment. Without rotation, wind patterns stop, Clouds stagnate. Precipitation patterns collapse. Over time, deserts might bloom, or lush forests might wither. But none of that has happened yet. Right now, the weather simply holds its breath. You wonder if the sun itself knows what has happened. You wonder if, from its perspective, Earth looks any different. A spinning blue marble suddenly slowing, a blur that becomes still. Would it notice, or would it just keep shining, unaware? Would it mourn the motion, or would it prefer a quiet planet? You rise again. Light glances off the side of your face. It feels strange, not cold, not warm, just light in its rawest form, not diluted by dusk or filtered by trees. It shines like it's never touched atmosphere, as if the air itself has stepped aside. And in that moment, you see something reflected, not in glass, not in water, but in the very stillness. You see yourself, standing in this strange world, alone, small, but awake in a way you never were before. Aware of things you can't name, you take a step forward, and your shadow moves again, this time with you, slowly, like it's learned something to dot, and the sun stays still. The longer you watch it, the more it feels like it's watching back, a silent sentinel, no longer rising, no longer setting, just ... being. And maybe that's the strangest part. It doesn't seem to care. You could be anywhere, anytime, and the light would still fall the same way. Unflinching, indifferent, endless. But you feel it, the difference, the stillness behind the light, the hush beneath your heartbeat. And as you walk toward the horizon, one that never moves, you wonder, how long can something stay beautiful when it never changes? You're walking now, or floating, or something in between. Each step feels like it belongs to someone else, like your legs are reenacting an old performance in a theater that's long since closed. Your feet press against the ground, but there's a subtle strangeness in the contact, not quite wrong, just a little too right, too linear, too reliable, like a dream mimicking physics, almost perfectly, but not quite. And deep in your bones, you feel it. The gravity has changed. You see, Earth's spin doesn't just make the days, it shapes how heavy you feel. You may not notice it in your ordinary life, but the centrifugal force of Earth's rotation gently tugs outward, counteracting a small portion of gravity. At the equator, that effect is strongest. You actually weigh ever so slightly less there than at the poles. But now there is no spin, no counterforce, no push-pulling against gravity's grasp. And so your body is slightly heavier, denser, pressed just a little more firmly into the planet beneath you. Not enough to pin you, just enough to remind you that something has changed. Your muscles notice first, that little extra effort required to lift a leg, to swing your arms. Your breath adjusts next. The air doesn't feel thinner, but your chest expands slightly more with each inhale, as if working against a quiet pressure. Like you're underwater, but dry. On land, but subtly submerged. And then your balance shifts. You wobble, just for a moment. Not enough to fall, but enough to notice. You have spent your entire life learning to walk on a spinning sphere without ever realizing it. And now that spin is gone, your inner ear, the tiny gyroscope of your biology, is confused. There's no Coriolis effect anymore. No subtle twisting force to shape wind or ocean or even the water inside your own ears. You are steady, perhaps too steady, like a compass needle with nowhere to point. You pause, you look around. Even the trees seem unsure how to stand. Their branches are still, but too still, like they've been drawn in place. The leaves don't rustle, the trunks don't creak, the grass doesn't sway. It's a portrait of a forest pretending to be real. Somewhere nearby, a stone falls from a low ridge, a small one, flat and smooth. It drops straight down with alarming precision. Number, arc, no drift. Just a direct plunge into the earth below, like gravity has found a shortcut. You watch it land, no bounce, no echo, just silence, the kind that feels thick, heavy, like it's weighing down the sound before it can even form. Your body hums with primal awareness, the kind you only get during earthquakes or eclipses. That sense that something fundamental is misaligned. You were never meant to be here, in this version of reality. And yet, here you are, strangely calm, strangely curious. Don't you think about inertia, momentum, the way everything that spins wants to keep spinning, don't you? Don't feel that anymore. No gentle sideways tug as you walk. No invisible push when you turn your head. You're not just still. You're motionless in a way you've never known. The earth has stopped, and so, in a way, has your history, because everything you've ever known happened on a spinning earth. Every childhood memory, every falling leaf, every glance at the stars, shaped by the arc of the sky as the planet turned beneath you. But now, the stars would no longer arc if night ever comes again. You wonder how long this weight will last, if your spine will compress, if oceans will slowly crawl toward the poles, released from the outward pull that once kept them bloated along the equator. Maybe that's already begun. Maybe that's why the air feels heavy. The redistribution of mass, the tectonic plates groaning with confusion, the atmosphere itself unsure how to behave without the dance of rotation to guide it. You sit again, this time not out of wonder, but out of necessity. You feel your weight settle deeper than before, into the stone, into the soil, as if earth wants you closer now, wants everything pressed against it, wants to hold tight to the few things that haven't flown away. And for a moment, you wonder, is this gravity's true form, or just its lonely song? You close your eyes, your breath is slow, you feel the world, unmoving, pressing gently upward beneath you, not violently, not urgently, just there, like a hand beneath a sleeping child. You are no longer spinning, you are no longer drifting, you are simply here, anchored, and you don't know if that should feel safe, or like the prelude to something vast. You open your eyes, but it feels more like you're waking through your vision, than with it. The sky, that great dome of rhythm and change, is frozen. The sun is locked in place, suspended overhead like a spotlight caught mid-performance. It hasn't moved an inch since the spinning stopped. You could swear the shadows on the trees are exactly the same length they were an hour ago. Or was it a minute or a day? Time, in the way your body usually understands it, has begun to collapse. Not time itself. The ticking seconds continue somewhere. But the markers you've always used to feel time pass. The sliding sun, the lengthening shadows, the orange bloom of dusk have gone silent. And so you sit there in an infinite afternoon, the kind that stretches so long you begin to doubt whether evening ever existed, whether it ever will again. This, more than anything, begins to unsettle you, because humans are creatures of rhythm, breath and pulse, sleep and waking, sun and moon. You may not always notice the sky, but it notices, pews your hormones, your hunger, your sense of direction, even your sense of self. But now, there's no cue, only static. The sunlight bathes everything in one endless golden hue. There are no clouds, no breeze. Even the birds have fallen quiet or left. It's as if all of nature is waiting for a conductor who forgot to show up. The stars, gone. Of course they are. The sky, locked in solar daylight, can't turn away to show you the night. And without the turning, there is no night. For half the world. This might become a forever day, a scorching, burning stillness where plants wither and water steams slowly into the air. For the other half, a permanent night, freezing, silent, with frost crawling across rooftops and oceans beginning to crystallize. You wonder which half you're in, because at the moment, it doesn't feel like either. It feels like the middle, like the seam between stories. But something inside you knows this pause is temporary. Not because the earth will start spinning again, but because equilibrium cannot last. When a system this massive changes, nature doesn't pause. It reacts, and the reaction is coming. You stand up slowly, look to the horizon. The sun's position is strange, just off from where you expect it, as if the earth stopped mid-spin a few degrees before completing its daily arc. That slight misalignment plays tricks on your brain. Your shadow stretches the wrong way. Your sense of east and west, of past and future, blurs. You remember how, when you were a child, you thought the sun moved. It doesn't, of course. You move, the earth spins, and you spin with it. And so the sky seems to dance. But now, without the earth's turn, the illusion is gone. The sun really is stationary, a spotlight shining from one direction forever. And that's when it hits you. If the spin never returns, one half of the planet will scorch, the other will freeze. And this narrow band, the twilight strip around the edge between light and dark, will become the only truly livable zone. A place where the sun kisses the horizon forever, where day never quite becomes night, and night never quite becomes day. A permanent golden hour. But that zone, BKO, it's narrow. only a few hundred miles wide, wrapped like a belt around the Earth's midsection. And slowly, ever so slowly, it will shift, as the Earth tilts, as the atmosphere fights to rebalance. The livable zone will drift, and people will FOLLOWA, global migration, toward the twilight, toward balance, toward the last place on Earth, where shadows still stretch and the air still moves. You imagine cities rising there, populations swelling, lines drawn and crossed. The equator redefined not by latitude, but by light. Nations crumbling and reforming around access to dusk. Because humans don't just need light, they need change. They need time to move, to pass. They need the sun to rise and fall. You're still staring upward, lost in the brightness, when a thought brushes the edge of your mind. What if this isn't permanent? What if this is only the pause before the spin starts again? You've read the theories, or maybe dreamed them, that if the Earth were suddenly stopped by a massive force, a planetary collision, a rogue gravitational wave, it could, in theory, begin to turn again. But not gently, not smoothly, not like it did before. It would lurch, the kind of motion that sends oceans sloshing across continents, the kind that pulls tectonic plates like wet paper, the kind that erases coastlines and redraws them in a heartbeat. And in that moment, for the first time, you feel fear. Not the dreamlike awe you've carried until now, real, physical fear. Because whatever stopped the Earth once might not be done yet. And if it moves again, even just a little, you know it won't be quiet. There will be no gentle sunrise to welcome you back, only the sound of a planet, remembering how to move, and everything, remembering how to fall. You stand near water now. You don't remember walking here, not exactly, but it feels inevitable that you did. When things break or shift, people return to the edges, to coastlines, rivers, lakes, places where change leaves a visible trace. But the sea looks ... wrong ... very wrong ... At first glance, it's calm, to calm. A glassy mirror, so flat it seems frozen. No waves, no ripples, no motion at all. But the sky is clear, the air warm. And yet this water does not behave like any ocean you've ever seen. Then you realize why. The tides have stopped, and suddenly your skin chills. Because this is not about the spin of the Earth anymore. This is about the moon, that distant, silent partner in Earth's gravitational dance. The moon pulls the oceans toward it, drawing tides across continents every single day. But tides are also shaped by Earth's rotation. The centrifugal force slinging water outward, the turning planet redistributing mass like a potter shaping clay dot now, with no spin. That shaping is gone. The tidal bulges collapse. Water that once sloshed rhythmically round the globe like a sleeping breath now lies still, trapped between pull and resistance. The sea looks dead. And in that death, new things begin to surface. Literally, islands that were never islands, sandbars and reefs now exposed. ships long buried, revealing rusted hulls and skeletal remains. Cities, perhaps lost to the ocean centuries ago, appearing again like secrets from a half-forgotten dream. But that's not all, because while some waters recede, others gather in the zones where the moon's pull is strongest. Directly beneath it, the ocean swells. It heaps upward into an eerie dome, hundreds of miles across. Not violently, not like a tsunami, but like a slow, bloated breath that never exhales. If you lived beneath that rising dome of water, you would not see the flood coming. No waves, no warning, just the land becoming sea. And if Earth's rotation never returns, this imbalance will become the new normal. The oceans will remake themselves. New shorelines will be drawn not by erosion or climate, but by gravity's quiet war with inertia and the moon. You glance up, seeking its familiar face, but you can't see it. Not because it's not there, it is, but because you're on the wrong side now. Without the planet's rotation carrying your vantage point across time zones, the moon becomes as fixed as the sun, locked in place above a single, permanent ocean dome. A ghostly sentinel staring down on a flooded half of the world. Somewhere beneath it, new civilizations might rise. Those who live always in moonlight, forever night, their myths shaped by silver tides and slow drowning. Elsewhere, the forgotten coasts will dry and crack, and people desperate for balance will keep moving. You begin to understand something deeper now. Earth's rotation wasn't just about movement. It was about fairness. It gave every inch of the planet a turn, a chance to face the sun, a moment in the light, and a moment to rest in the dark. But now that fairness is broken. Some will boil, some will freeze, and some a thin strip, wrapped like a scar across the waste of the world, will endure in fragile equilibrium. You might be in that strip, you might not, but even if you are, you know what's coming, because you can feel it in your bones. The pause, this stillness, is not the end. It's just the inhale. Before something bigger, and water, like time, cannot remain still forever. It will return with force. With hunger dot, you watch the sea and wait for it to move. Because when it does, it will not whisper, it will roar. You feel it before you hear it, a subtle shift in the pressure of the air, like something exhaling, slowly. No leaves rustle, no grasses bend, but the silence tightens, thickens, as if the atmosphere itself is holding its breath. Then, without warning, the wind returns, not a breeze, not a gust, but a memory of speed. Waking up, you stagger back instinctively, though nothing touches you yet. The first wave of air is so vast, so slow-moving and high above, that it feels like an invisible tide, pushing against your very soul. Because here's the thing, even though the planet stopped spinning briefly, the atmosphere did not. It kept going. The air, freed from the friction of the Earth's surface, kept whipping around the globe at over 1,000 miles per hour. When the ground halted, the winds didn't. And that difference, That unimaginable kinetic mismatch has been building tension ever since dot. Now, that tension snaps and the sky begins to howl. It starts high up, a soft, shrieking whistle at the edge of the stratosphere. Then it descends, layer by layer, rushing down invisible staircases of turbulence, collapsing toward the surface like a tidal wave made of air. Jet streams lose their paths. Cyclones spiral off course. The very bones of the weather begin to splinter, and here, where you stand, you begin to understand what it means to breathe on a planet that used to spin. The pressure changes first, ears popping, eyes watering. Then the dust. It rises like smoke from the ground, forming phantom serpents that dance and tangle. Trees bend, windows rattle, animals panic. Insects vanish into cracks they haven't used in centuries. You hold your arms to your ears, because the wind isn't just loud, it screams. It screams in every frequency at once, low like distant thunder, high like metal torn apart, and underneath it all, a hollow, mournful tone, like the sound of something ancient, breaking. And it is breaking because the Earth's crust, long held in place by predictable forces, now buckles under this new chaos. Storm systems collide violently where they never should have met. Drought zones are flooded. Rainforests are battered to pulp. Snow falls where none ever did. And you try to remember the stillness, that strange, terrible moment when everything stopped. 5 seconds of planetary paralysis, and how quiet it all was. This isn't like that. This is the world remembering what motion feels like and failing to handle it. A jet stream rips down from the sky, dragging the upper atmosphere into the ground. It flattens an entire forest in one breath. Rivers change course. Sand dunes become missiles. Skyscrapers moan like ships in a storm. You don't know where to run, because there is no safe direction. No corner untouched. No haven against a wind that wraps the entire earth. It's not just weather anymore. It's memory made violent, and worse of all, it may never stabilize, because the earth is still trying to rotate again, ever so slightly, pushed by the core, by lunar influence, by tidal recoil. And each time it twitches, every molecule of air above it panics. You kneel now, trying to breathe, trying to think, but the sound is everywhere, and in that sound you realize something strange. You hear voices, or not quite voices, but patterns that feel like memory, like echoes of cities, of forests, of mountain ranges long erased by erosion. The wind remembers, and as it shrieks past your skin, it carries with it the shape of the earth that used to be. You close your eyes and listen, because maybe, just maybe, understanding the wind is the first step to surviving what comes next. Your ears are still ringing. The wind is slowing, but your body remains tense, as if the sky could fall at any moment. And then you feel it, a shift beneath your feet, gentle at first, rhythmic, like the breathing of something vast and submerged. You Open your eyes and look toward the horizon. The ocean is rising, but not as a wave. Not yet. It's more like a bulge. A vast, unnatural dome of water swelling outward, as if the sea itself is remembering its momentum. For 5 seconds, the Earth's rotation had paused, but the oceans, like the atmosphere, did not. They continued to move with all their ancient inertia now. The consequences are crawling back to shore. You begin to understand when Earth rotates. It bulges at the equator due to centrifugal force. Water piles subtly there, forming what scientists call the equatorial bulge. But take away that spin, even for a breath of time, and that bulge collapses. Water, REDIST, the oceans, fall inwards, and when the spin resumes, they rush back out desperately, violently, to reclaim their former shape. You see it now. The water pulling away from shore, sucked toward the ocean's heart. Ships listing sideways in dry harbors. Fish flopping on steaming sands. Whales confused, drifting in shallow basins. It's a tsunami, but stranger. This isn't just a wave caused by an earthquake. This is a planet-wide correction, and it's not happening all at once. Different parts of the world feel it differently. On the west coast of a continent, water flees. On the east, it returns, a wall of liquid memory slamming into cliffs that were dry 5 minutes ago. You climb to higher ground, barely ahead of the surge. From here, the view is almost beautiful. The ocean folds upward like a blue silk curtain, curling, shimmering. But below it is rage, the kind that cracks coral reefs, that lifts cargo ships into hotels, that leaves salt in the lungs of entire cities. You can hear sirens now, distant, desperate, and then nothing. The sea drowns even sound. Inland rivers reverse. Lakes overflow and merge with roads. Swamps become oceans. Oceans become walls. This isn't just water moving. It's Earth's balance reasserting itself. Like a person waking up too quickly after a deep sleep. Dizzy, staggering, dropping everything. And the moon, still tugging. The tides at once pulled gently, now ripple like wild static. The moon does not understand what happened. It only knows something went wrong, and so it pulls harder out of rhythm, like a conductor waving to an orchestra. That's no longer playing. Meanwhile, beneath the ocean, fault lines stretch and snap. The crust, already weakened by atmospheric chaos, begins to give way. Volcanoes rumble under the sea. Hydrothermal vents spit fire into darkness, and islands ancient and sleeping begin to stir. Some rise, some fall, some disappear entirely. You sit now, soaked and stunned, watching the ocean try to find stillness. But the truth is, it won't. Not for a long time. Because when the Earth stops, even for 5 seconds, every layer of its being feels it, and the ocean, with all its secrets, remembers everything. As the oceans settle into chaos, and the skies continue to weep, the ground beneath your feet begins to speak, not with words, but with tremors. You place your hand on the earth. It's warm, too warm. You feel it now, the slow pulse of tectonic plates adjusting to the unimaginable jolt they just experienced. The Earth's crust, normally shifting with the grace of centuries, was just tugged by something far more brutal. The sudden pause, then whiplash return of rotation. Mountains groan. Valleys stretch. Somewhere far away, a city vanishes into a sinkhole the size of a lake. And then comes the sound, deep, layered, not a boom, but a rumble that seems to come from the planet's spine. You realize the Earth has a memory too, a memory written in stone. The Earth's mantle, a semi-liquid sea of rock beneath the crust, does not appreciate being thrown off rhythm. For 5 seconds, the forces that usually help distribute its pressure, the Coriolis effect, convection, currents, magnetic flow, were frozen. Now they are trying to restart all at once. Friction builds. Heat blossoms, and in some places, the mantle breaks through. Volcanoes dormant for centuries awaken with a kind of vengeance. Ash columns spiral into the darkened sky, turning the world dim and grey. You imagine the map of the world changing in real time. Islands born from steam. Continents cracking open like ancient bread. A river in Africa now flows 2 directions. A glacier in Greenland collapses like soft clay. The poles are melting faster, not just from heat, but from imbalance. And then you remember something else. The core, at the heart of our planet, spins a solid ball of iron, suspended within a swirling outer core of molten metal. Its motion is what generates Earth's magnetic field, the invisible armor that shields us from the sun's radiation. But what happens when Earth's rotation suddenly skips? The field flickers. You can feel it in your teeth. A strange buzzing. Migratory birds drop from the sky, their internal compasses confused. Satellites blink and misfire. GPS fails. Compasses point nowhere. For those watching the northern lights, its beautiful streams of violet and emerald suddenly dance across skies as far south as Cairo. But it is not peace, it is radiation, slipping through a cracked shield. The sun, ever watching, begins to whisper through the breach, and then you notice your shadow is wrong. Not just long, split, as if the light no longer knows where to fall. It's hard to say what time it is now. The day was interrupted. The Earth's rotation resumed. Yes, but not without lag, not without scars. You wonder if the days will be shorter now, or longer, or just broken. In one region, the sunrise never came. In another, the moon rose twice in one night. Clocks spin but seem useless, and deep beneath your feet, where molten iron churns and magnetic lines twist like tangled string, something has shifted permanently. Some scientists once warned, a disruption like this could cause a geomagnetic reversal, the flipping of the poles. North becomes south. What was up is now beneath. It doesn't happen immediately, but the seed has been planted. You close your eyes, listening to the earth hum like a cracked bell. The planet has survived. Asteroid strikes by sages. mass extinctions. But this was its own doing. Or maybe a reminder from nature that momentum is sacred. And even a 5-second silence in the spin can tear through eons of balance. You feel the wind shift again, colder, sharper, and the ground, still humming, waits. You sit on a hillside now. Above you, a sky still limping back to order. Below you, a town trying to remember how to function. The world didn't end, but something did. The earth spins again, but it spins differently. Just enough that you feel it in your bones and in the clocks. Every timepiece, wristwatches, wall clocks, atomic clocks, they all lost the same 5 seconds, but not in the way you expected. They didn't skip. They fractured. Some run fast now, as if trying to make up for the silence. Some run slow, dragging their hands like old men pulling memories behind them. Others simply stopped, blinking forever at a time that never truly existed. 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 42 seconds. The moment the planet held its breath, you realize something strange. Time didn't just move differently. It felt different, as if those 5 seconds were stolen, buried somewhere deep, not just in physics, but in memory. People describe it in whispers. I saw my childhood. I smelled my mother's cooking from 20 years ago. I felt alone in a good way. I felt like I wasn't me. A pilot says his instruments went blank, but he saw stars where there shouldn't have been stars, constellations from the southern hemisphere, while flying over Norway. A diver reports hearing a voice echoing through the ocean trench, something not quite human, but not terrifying either. Just ancient dot. And you remember a feeling, not a sight, not a sound, but a sensation, like being suspended in warm black velvet, gravityless, timeless, and within it, the subtle awareness that you were not alone. It was as if during those 5 seconds, a door opened, not on earth, but in reality, and something looked in, not to hurt, not to help, just to see. And when earth spun again, that door closed, almost because some things don't unsee. You notice people acting differently now. Strangers are quiet in elevators, but lock eyes longer. Children draw symbols in chalk that no one taught them. Astronomers discover a new rhythm in pulsars, like a stutter in the cosmic beat. Dreams become vivid, shared, and oddly similar. A humming noise begins to trend online. People across the globe record the exact same frequency, heard at dawn and dusk, like the earth itself is murmuring in its sleep. A physicist in Geneva says, it's as if our frame of reference slipped, not space-time, exactly, more like our place in space-time. A shaman in the Andes says, the earth died and came back, just a little, just enough, banned somewhere in a deep bunker, shielded by layers of lead and protocol. A group of scientists plays back satellite footage of the moment, frame by frame, at precisely 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 42 seconds UTC. Every global camera recording the sky experienced the same glitch. A blank frame. Not black. Not static, just white. For one frame, approximately 1/24th of a second, the sky went missing. No sun, no stars, no atmosphere, just pure white. And then normal again, as if nothing had happened. But you know better. Everyone does. It's been the way people touch the ground more often. In the way animals stare at the horizon. In the sudden, inexplicable urge to look up at the sky and feel small. And maybe that's the lesson. 5 seconds. That's all it took. Not to end the world, but to remind it that balance is delicate. That the spin we depend on is not promised. That even the most stable things, gravity, time, day and night, are just habits of a very old machine. A machine that noticed us, and now we notice it back. You rise, brushing dust from your hands. The ground feels steadier, but never again will it feel casual. You walk down the hillside, clocks ticking, clouds shifting, and far, far above, the earth spins on. But you'll never feel it the same again. It begins with a feeling, not a thought, not an idea, just a low residual ache. The kind of sensation that doesn't hurt, but doesn't go away either. A pressure behind the eyes. A tug just beneath the ribs. A hum like the after-ring of a distant bell. Doctors call it post-vestibular disturbance. Psychologists prefer temporal dissonance anxiety. But most people just call it the echo dot. It doesn't happen right away. It creeps first. In sleep, you dream of spirals, of spinning rooms where the floor becomes the sky, of standing still as the world rushes past like a blur of color and sound. Some wake up weeping, some wake up laughing. No one wakes up unchanged. Then it shows up in the body. Birds migrate off-seas. Wolves howl at noon. People feel seasick miles from any ocean. Dancers lose their balance. Musicians complain their instruments sound off, as if tuned to a slightly wrong world. You begin to notice other people feel it too. They grip railings longer than needed. They pause on stairs. They close their eyes in elevators. Not out of fear, but instinct. The earth is spinning again. Yes, but it spins with a memory now. A scar under the surface of time. Scientists try to study it. They measure tides, magnetic fields, neural activity. They launch satellites to monitor rotational velocity. But all the instruments say the same thing. Everything by is normal, and yet everything is not. A boy in Mongolia paints a perfect star map he's never seen. A woman in Iceland speaks in a language not heard for 2,000 years, just once, in her sleep, never again. A dog in Tokyo starts barking at 2:07 a.m. sharp every morning, tail wagging, ears perked, toward, nothing dot, and one day you feel it again. Not the spin, not the stop, but a tug, faint and fleeting, a flicker behind your heartbeat, like a second pulse, not your own. It happens when you're alone, in silence. usually near water. The tug doesn't hurt. It doesn't pull. It reminds. A whisper in your muscles. You were there in the pause, in the stillness between seconds, in the moment when the world forgot itself. And now your body remembers, not in words, not in facts, but in rhythm. You start walking differently, listening differently. Your laughter takes on a new timing, just slightly delayed, as if your sense of joy waits a beat longer, to let the cosmos speak first. You aren't alone in this. Communities form online, in parks, in quiet corners of cities. They don't chant, they don't preach, they sit together to breathing in the new beat. 5 seconds wide. They don't claim to understand it, but they honor it, as if the earth's stillness wasn't a mistake, but a message, as if the pause was a form of punctuation, a cosmic ellipsis, an almost, and maybe it was, maybe it is, because late at night, when the noise fades and you lie still, you don't wonder if it will happen again. You wonder when and whether, this time, it will stop for 6. On the 6th day after the event, astronomers noticed something strange. Not in the telescopes, but in themselves. One by one, they began reporting the same thing. The stars aren't where they're supposed to be. It wasn't immediate. No blinking red alarms. No doomsday broadcasts. Just subtle inconsistencies, like stargazers finding constellations slightly off-kilter. Sirius to dim, Orion's belt slightly stretched. The North Star, not exactly north. Some blamed calibration errors. Others blamed fatigue. But then the photos started coming in to satellite images. Same patch of sky, same coordinates. One from the night before the Earth stopped. One from the night after. Side by side, like before and after portraits. They didn't match. The scientists argued, harshly, heatedly, and yet none of them could deny what they saw. The sky had shifted, not just the stars, the fabric of the sky. Planetarium domes quietly shut their doors. Space agencies issued vague press releases. Old observatories reactivated ancient instruments. And every night, more amateur stargazers began noticing it too. That slight misalignment. The sense that the sky was unfamiliar. Like coming home and finding all your furniture almost in the right place. Even the moon felt different. Not visibly, but emotionally. Poets began calling it the watching moon, as if it were no longer just reflecting light, but observing. People began staying indoors at night, not out of fear, but out of reverence. The stars no longer felt like passive dots in a backdrop. They felt like witnesses. And yet, something else happened. Children born after the event began drawing stars differently. Not 5-pointed, not scattered. They drew them as spirals, perfect, inward-turning spirals, always counterclockwise. They said that's how the stars feel to them. One girl, 4 years old, in Argentina, whispered to her teacher, "The stars used to sing. Now they're humming." Meanwhile, Seismologists noticed tremors in places where tectonic plates shouldn't move. Deep ocean sensors recorded pulses from beneath the crust, rhythmic and slow. 5 seconds apart, again and again, as if the earth was still echoing the moment, still shivering with memory. Some called it the afterspin, others called it the residue. But one scientist from Kyoto described it differently. He stood before a room of colleagues and said very softly, "I don't think we're spinning the same way anymore." He meant it literally. Not that we had stopped, but that we had resumed in a subtly new direction. A fraction of a degree, barely perceptible tilt, like a record needle skipping into a new groove. It meant our orientation to the universe had changed. Not drastically, but enough that perhaps we were now drifting along a path not previously ours. A new trajectory, a new thread in the cosmic fabric. And if that were true, then the stars weren't out of place. We were. The sky hadn't betrayed us. We had become a different observer. And as every physicist knows, the observer changes the observation. And so the sky changed to dot now. When you look up, if you breathe just right, if your heartbeat aligns with the hum, if you let go of what the sky used to be, you might see it. Not stars, not planets, but something older, something behind the backdrop. Not light, but presence. The thing watching you. And if you hold your gaze long enough, you might even remember its name. Not in your head, but in your bones. And it will sound less like a word, and more like a lullaby, sung by a planet learning how to spin again. And so we arrive at the end, or what feels like the end. Not because it's over, but because something inside you has become still. A kind of stillness that only comes after listening to a silence. So complete, you begin to hear your own atoms waiting. Let's return to that moment. The 5 seconds. Not the chaos. Not the fear. But something else. Something quieter. Something most people missed. For just a moment. When the world stopped spinning, so did time. Not completely. Not according to the clocks, but in the way leaves paused in midair. In the way your thoughts became slower than breath. In the way birds mid-flight didn't fall, but simply hovered. You might remember it now. Not the sound, there was none, but the texture of it, like velvet pulled across the sky. It wasn't death, it wasn't sleep, it was suspension. The earth exhaled everything it had ever been, and then inhaled something it had never known. A breath from somewhere far outside the solar wind, from between particles, from behind the blueprint of gravity. And in that breath, something woke up. Not a creature, not a god, not a system. A memory the earth had long forgotten. That it was once part of a larger rhythm, a choreography older than light, a planetary heartbeat. You were never meant to notice it. Too small, too brief. But when the world stopped, the veil lifted, and you felt it in the aching behind your ribs. In the dream you can't remember, but wake up crying from it. In the way you now touch the ground, as if it might not always be there. And now, Long after it's over, your bones still remember that stillness. Your blood still carries its tempo. You walk differently, slower, more deliberate, like someone who's heard the truth but can't yet speak it. Because here is the secret no scientist dares say aloud. The earth may never truly spin the same way again. Oh, it turns. It completes its days. It follows its orbit. But inside, deep inside, it now listens as it spins. Dot each rotation like a prayer. Each revolution like a turning page. In a book the universe is reading. And you've changed. To dot, you now fall. Asleep as if the bed is floating. You dream in spirals, not lines. You wake with questions that feel like stars pressed behind your eyes. And if you ever find yourself standing alone at night, beneath that humming sky, look up, not with your eyes, but with your breath. Let your lungs open wide, as if they, too, could spin. And you might feel it again. That impossible stillness, that planetary memory, the moment when the earth stopped and heard itself for the very first time. Sleep now. There is nothing to do, nothing to solve. Just the long, slow turning of a world that remembers. And in its memory, you are safe, you are seen, you are spinning, very gently, very quietly, all the way into morning.